Today on In the Woodyard, we get a visit from a famous person. We're having a cookout. You're going to see him later, and we're going to process a bunch of wood. I'm going to do a lot of narration on this video. It's like 40-some minutes, and I talk pretty much the whole time. You're going to hear that coming up in just a little bit, but here we go. So this next log coming in here, I want to talk a little bit about because it's a dangerous one. It's a shattered log, and this is one that you really should not run through the processor. Just like when you're cutting with a chainsaw, all those shards will come flying out everywhere, so you definitely want to be careful that you're not looking at it and stand behind the Lexon screen, you know, the gazing window as we like to call it. But watch when this gets cut. I'm behind it. I just have the camera out in front, but the stuff just flies everywhere. You get shards, and it'll catch the bar, and the chain will not track the way you want it to, and then it splits nasty and everything. So I'm just kind of trying to clean out all the trash, because when you try to split those shattered ones, you get a lot of debris. They tend not to cooperate. So you're almost better off just putting them to the side and not running them in a processor. Hand cut them and then run it through a regular log splitter, but watch the stuff fly all over. You get shards just flying, so you definitely want to watch that. And if you get one that's shattered just in half, it can tumble on you too and do a bunch of weird things. But those are the worst ones as far as exploding weird. So you gotta be careful with them. You can see all the stuff, and a lot of times if I see that, I'll just take it and throw it over the top like this, so that it goes up the elevator, because there's no sense in crushing it down smaller, because it's dry. That piece there is just causing problems, so I end up turning it around. It probably would have been fine just the way it was, but I kind of wanted to clear out all the garbage down below that it was making there, because they break up. Because when you get the shattered pieces, they're just not very solid. There are obviously a lot of problems. Here you want to kind of run the clamp as low as possible. You can see it up on the top there, the clamp, which is holding the log in place with the teeth. You want to bring that down as close as possible so you can push it up tight to the push plate, so you get the right length of 16 inches. And a lot of times with these ones that are split in half like this, I'll just raise the wedge up and I'll just split them in half again instead of making a bunch of shards, which is what can happen. So there you go. And we got another small guy coming in here. The small ones are real easy because they cut fast, they split fast. You only a lot of times have to either split them in half maybe quarters, so you kind of adjust your wedge. So you're just hitting the main center wedge, and then sorry, I lowered it down a little bit, and then your wings on the bottom, the ones that angle down, and I don't know what degree they are, they're like the 45s where they are, the bottom wings. So you want to just hit that, not really hit much of the middle wing at all, because you're going to cut a lot of small little slivers then. So you got to kind of watch your wedge so that you don't have it making little bitty slivers. I mean, some is okay, but you just don't want a lot of it. You try to have more solidly sized pieces, and try to get the consistency that you really want is everything to be fairly close. Some small ones are fine, and some big ones are fine too. Here I'm just cutting the cookie off. But you can see by looking at the center of the log there, the very center of it is wet, that darkness, but then the outer edge is all pretty dry. So this stuff, once it's cut and split, will dry really fast. And anything that's got vertical cracks, like if you look at the log right now, you can see that crack running of the vertical part of it. That's going to be extremely dry, this log here. And I think I backed this one out. Oh, I did split it. A lot of times if I saw a dry one, I would either back it out and we'd put it into the dry pile, or if I split it like I am now, I grab all those pieces and I toss them into a pile behind me, and then later on, those are the ones we load into the truck. But you can see by looking at the center of the one that's up in the trough there, it's all the same color, and you can see cracks all the way to the middle. It's very, very dry, like 13-14%. So absolutely excellent. This is the stuff I wish I could get all day, you know, the 8, 10, 12-inch stuff that's dry like that. I mean, it's literally printing money at that point. There's no dry time. Yes, you're going to get a little bit of rot, but most of the people don't care. What they want is wood that's going to burn really well, and it does. Yeah, you're going to get a little bit of rot, and you might lose a little bit of heat because of it, but not all logs are solid like you're going to get from a green, fresh cut. But yeah, that's right, because it had a rotten center. That's what the problem was. And you get some of that. It's no big deal. You know what? It's made of wood, and it will burn, 100% guaranteed. So here's just the top view. You can see I got some oil on the lens there from mist from the bar oil, which happens. I try to wipe it off, but sometimes you think you got it, you don't, and it's all blurry. But you can just see how the pieces drop in, and it's splitting really nicely. Real nice sized chunks. I like that 10-inch stuff. That's about what this is here, somewhere around there. You saw I reached in with my hand there. I was adjusting the wedge, and that's what's nice about the Blockbuster. You can adjust stuff so easily, yet it's so easily accessible. You can very easily reach in, turn pieces, flip them end for end, straighten them out. If you want to go through and pick out pieces that are dry, you can do that. Or if you want to throw them in for resplits, it's so easy to get at. It's more user-friendly than most of the machines, especially the great big monsters. It's just a real user-friendly machine. And some of the people that say, oh, no, you can produce so much more wood faster with the big machines. Yeah, you can, but you're destroying a lot of your wood too. You create so much trash because you can't get at the splitting chamber to adjust the pieces. So what you end up doing is you just crush the pieces through there, and they stand up on you, and you're literally cutting them in half again by pushing them through the wedge if they go vertical on you, which does happen. The one thing I wish all the push plates had was a better grip. They got the buttons on there, and I see a lot of processors like that, but I would like it to be more aggressive so the log doesn't slide as much, so it's holding it better. Here you can see I'm just kind of easing the logs in. And again, I try to run the clamp on the top very close so the log won't drop in on me, which can happen here. I'm just cutting a cookie off. You can see the very center there is just a little darkness, but it's pretty dry. I would say that wood is close to being ready to burn. Once you get, again, like I said, once you get it cut and split, a matter of a month or two, and it's ready to go. You can see logs falling into the trough. Again, real nice sized logs. I like this size stuff right here. Cuts pretty quick and splits real easy and dries really well. This one's a pretty wet one. I can tell by looking at how dark it was. If you look at it once it falls away, you can see the center is pretty dark. But yeah, you can see some goodies growing on there. When you get fungus growing on the outside, that's a sign of decay, which happens, but Oak will last a very long time. I know a guy who's got a log pile he's had for about 5 or 6 years now, and we went and looked at it. We might be processing it, and it was all oak, and it's still solid. He's got the outer layer is kind of rotten like that, which is what happens when the tree is standing dead, and the inner layer will die off like that. There's a cookie, and I split a lot of these. You can see like right there. What I do is I pop them in half, and then we throw them to the side, and then my brother takes them home for his wood boiler. But the big ones we do split in half. Usually I just run the wedge until they pop in half, and then I back off the wedge because we don't want to crush them into 1,000 pieces. We just want them in half, and then I toss them to the back so they're easier to handle. We're just doing some resplits. So the question I get all the time is, how often do I sharpen the chain? Not very. It's a 404 chain, and I think I sharpened it 2 splitting days before this. I think we processed a full day on this chain, and then again this day, and it was still sharp. As long as you're cutting really clean wood, as far as not having a lot of sand and mud and rocks, you don't hit any fence wire or nails or anything like that, that 404 chain just goes forever. Plus, because you're using the hydraulics, you've got so much chain speed, and you've got so much bar pressure that it just cuts. You can tell when it starts to get dull. It'll stop when it hits a knot once in a while, and you gotta kind of adjust the bar up and down, and to get it to go to cut. Here we had one that was totally dry, so we ran that off the back edge. We're gonna put that in a dry pile in the middle there. But that pile to the right, you're seeing right behind the tractor there, we finished that today, this day that we're processing. It was a couple days ago for me already. And but yeah, well, you can adjust it as far as the pressure, but I haven't changed it at all. It's a hydraulic valve setting, I guess, that you can put more pressure on the bar. But I find that the only wood that we really have an issue with is if it's a really big like log that's got it right at a crotch, or if you're processing really big dry ash. It tends to not cut as efficiently and as smoothly as you would like. The more moisture that's in a wood, the better and easier it cuts for the most part. You can see that center, that wet spot. The rest of it is dry on the outside. That little bit of wet spot you saw back there, you're going to see it maybe when I cut again here. If you look at the very center, you'll see that very center, that maybe 2 inches, that's wet. The rest of it's dry. And yeah, so you just kind of watch that. And if we get ones that are totally dry on the inside, if I can make my first cut and I can tell it's bone dry, I'll run it out the back. My brother grabs it, and then he sets it into that middle pile, because we want to kind of keep that wood separate, because I want to be able to sell that stuff right away. And that's the wood that we're going to, at the end of the video, you'll see that we process into the trailer, and then we put a load in the truck. Here you can see about 1 inch all the way on the outside is dry, and the rest of it's real wet. Watch when I make the next cut here, you can see. That's pretty darn wet. You got maybe 1 inch, 1.5 inches on the outside, and then the rest of it is wet. And when I say wet, I mean it's like 30% moisture content, something like that. And then it will dry really fast. Here you can see, but overall it's really good wood as far as firewood. This red oak is awesome, and a lot of people asking why it's all dying. People that don't know, they're not in this part of the country. We have a disease here called oak wilt. It's a slow death, and it's a fungus, I guess, that's transported by bugs or through the root system. And it kills the trees slowly. Basically, it kills the tops off. It's kind of a wilty leaf kind of a look to it, and then you'll have a branch die off, and the next year you have another one, and then maybe the top will die off, and then a couple other ones, and then once you start to see that there's not a lot of life in it, the next year there'll be no new growth or very little, and then that tree is dead. And then within usually 2 to 3 years, you'll see the bark start to fall off. And then when the bark falls off, you've got about 3 or 4 years of it can stay standing dead, and it's just drying all the time. But because it's still got a root system, even though the tree is dead, the roots and the base, the butt of the tree will wick moisture up from the ground, and so the bottom log will be wet or wetter, and the tops will always be really dry. And the longer it stands, the more dry it gets. The problem is as it's standing there, the roots are rotting, And then once the roots rot away, that might take 5, 6, 7 years. All it takes is a windstorm and the trees will go down, or another tree will hit it and it'll knock it over. I was helping my buddy Tony cut some trees on his property. We tied a rope on a couple of dead ones that we wanted to pull down, and I climbed up on a ladder, and it felt kind of wobbly. I didn't think anything of it. And then we went to pull the tree over, and it didn't take any effort whatsoever. The tree basically just, there was no roots. It was just kind of like a knob in the ground where all the roots were rotted off. And then I started to think, I shouldn't have been up on a ladder, up in that tree tying the rope on. And we didn't do that again after that. Then we started throwing rope or shooting rope with his giant slingshot up into the trees, and then we would pull them down, or we would just push them over with the tractor. It's just a safer way to do it. But yeah, the roots will rot away, and when that happens, the tree is not going to stay standing much longer. And what happens to oak trees is they'll stand till the roots rot away. But a lot of other trees, especially ash, we've noticed, once they die, the bark will fall off, and then when the bark falls off, the tree will stand for maybe a year or two, and the branches will start breaking off, which happens to a lot of trees. But then, once you get about maybe 3 years into the death of the tree, you have a problem, and then they'll just start breaking off. Here I had a log fall in, so I had to crawl up in there and pull it out, just trying to roll it back. What I try to get is just hook it onto the chains on the infeed up on the live deck, and I get it so I just can touch it, and then I'll hop down and then I run it backwards. You'll see that. I think my brother grabbed it with the grapple I was trying to. But I'll just run it backwards and you can pull it off of there, and that happens once in a while. If they're too big ones, a lot of times you got to use the cant hook, but you just got to be quick on the draw and not let two of them fall in. You got to know your timing. Here you can see I hit a knot right there. You can see it, and that's what stopped it. Which does happen occasionally. You'll get it where it'll stop. You just back off your bar and then come back down through it, and then it'll finish the cut. But sometimes it'll happen, and I think that has to do with the amount of pressure that's on the bar. There's either too much or not enough that it'll stop the chain like that. It doesn't happen very often, and like I said, it's usually on dry ash is where it's the worst, because there's no moisture whatsoever. Here you can see the dark center ring. That's the wet stuff. And again, like I said, when they did test it with the moisture meter, it was like 30%. And a live tree is in the mid-40s, so it's, what would that be, like a third of the way dry already? And once we get it cut and split, it dries down real fast. But you can see the size of the pieces coming out here. There's some little bigger ones that I'll grab some of those and throw them back in. Usually I'll do 1 or 2 at a time. A lot of times I'll put 2 or 3 in there. You can see I start grabbing a couple here. But those are fine sized pieces, but because they're wet, I just want to split them down a little finer. And most of my customers are okay with stuff that's that size. And I do leave some of it. If I have chunks that are totally dry, that don't need to dry anymore, I'll leave them a little bit bigger. So we have some bigger stuff. But you can see here, again from up above, cutting through and then splitting as they go. And the more crooked logs will turn left and right and in and out. And sometimes you got to roll them a little bit to get a straight cut. But in general, if you can get a cut it's fairly straight, like right there, it's pretty much almost in the middle. You want a nice even cut there. I'm lowering the wedge down. That's how I pushed it down to lower it down. And the wedge on the Blockbuster is a floating wedge. So as pieces go through, if they're a nasty, crotchy, knotty one, it will avoid those knots, and the wedge can ride up and down. There, I just got to spin the piece down in there. It kind of shot off to the side. I'll probably do a resplit on that one. And again, from the front angle, you can see the 8-way wedge, how the size of the pieces are. They're pretty nice. There's another cookie. And again, a lot of times I'll just run it through because I have to spin the piece and throw the cookie out. I try to do that at the same time. Try to eliminate as many steps as you can. But here I'm on my last log, so my brother better bring me another one. Here he comes. So it's always a game to see if I can run out of logs before he brings me another one, if he's out doing something else. And I'll stand there with my arms in there like, what the heck you doing? So try to catch him off guard. It's kind of like, I was talking with Ed, our friend. We were running the Evo up at my brother Ken's, and his best part of his day is when he would run out of wood and he could stand there with his arms in there and pretend to Kenny like what's going on. Oh, here you can see these are really dry, and I'll throw those off to the side behind me. So they're bigger chunks, but you can see by looking at them, there's no moisture at all in that wood. So I'll grab all those pieces as we split this log and I'll toss it behind me. And then that's the stuff that I will throw into my truck to go home because I know it's dry. Because I don't want to run the processor into the bed of my truck. I'm fine. And we run the processor with the elevator going right into the trailer, but I don't want it going into my truck, denting it all up and having pieces fly all over the place and breaking the window. So you can see that large one sitting right behind the wedge there. That is dry. That's what you want. So there, I'm fine with the stuff that size if it's really dry. So we get a variety of sizes. 'Cause I have some people that will say, hey, bring me a few bigger ones too, because they're running in their little wood stove they have, and they want some that are going to last a little longer in their garage or in their basement. Once in a while you get someone that has a fire pit and they'll say, hey, I got a monster fire pit, bring me, bigger ones are fine. But again, most of the people I sell to want the stuff they can pick up with one hand because they want to be able to move it easily. And that's, if I can grab it with one hand like I did there, I don't really want it any bigger than that. But you can see here how dry this is. The very center, there's a little bit of moisture in that one that I just cut. You can see that there's a little bit of moisture, but it's very little. It's maybe just the first inch or two on the inside there that's got a little moisture. Yeah, there you can see it's a little wetter. So it must have been the bottom of the log. So sometimes I'll get it is the bottom one because it's rotten on the bottom. I'll get a bottom butt cut like that, and on those I'll just let go up the elevator. I won't a lot of times throw them out, but if it looks like they're mostly dry, I'll throw them into the pile to be burned. I'm going to resplit that one down because that's a little bigger and it was wet. But most of this stuff is pretty dry. When you get a hollow log, generally it's going to be real dry because it's drying on the inside too. And again, I'm just resplitting some of the bigger ones. And if I see there's dry ones, like I said, I'll toss them behind me and let the ones that are wet, let them go up the elevator. So we're just kind of chucking them out there. So looks like that one's got all eaten up from ants. Usually ants are what cause that. Oh, and I get a question all the time from people in the south. What do you do with wood that's got ants in it? Well, once you cut it and split it, the ants will leave. They don't stick around because they have to have moisture and they want protection. So if you cut it into small chunks, rounds, and then if you split it into small chunks, their home is gone basically. It's like ripping the roof off your house. You're probably not going to stay there very long. Plus they have to have moisture. I think my back was getting sore. I was kind of stretching a little there. So yeah, they go away. And the other question I get all the time from people from the south is the wood on the ground. They could never leave it on the ground because down there the termites would move in and eat the wood up. Well, we don't have termites because we have this little thing called winter up here where we literally get 20, 30 below zero for weeks on end. This year we didn't have a lot of snow until just recently. But a lot of times we'll get 2-3 feet of snow. So termites are not a thing here. They can't survive in our climate, kind of like a lot of other things that we have that we don't have. A lot of people ask about snakes in the wood pile. We have basically 3 or 4 kinds of snakes. None of them are poisonous. There's a timber rattler somewhere in the southwest part of the state. There, I had to roll a log just so I get it in the middle. But no poisonous snakes other than timber rattlers, which there's very few of. By us, we have garter snakes, are the number one snake you'll see once in a while. Grass snakes, which are green, and then fire bellies. And those are the main ones. Sometimes you'll get a fox snake or a corn snake. We have water snakes, which some people call them water moccasins, but they are not poisonous. They're not cottonmouths. They're just water snakes. They do bite though. They're very aggressive little buggers. They have like razor kind of teeth. When I was a kid, we caught lots of them. So snakes really aren't an issue here. Sometimes you'll see a snake skin in your log pile or wood pile because they crawl onto a rough surface and they'll shed their skin. And mice can be an issue, but where my wood yard was, there was a lot of cats, so there's very few mice. And maybe in my new wood yard I'll get a couple cats and have a little heated house for them or something to live in, and they can kill mice for a living and I'll feed them. I don't know what we'll do. But yeah, there's not too many mice. We don't have rats. Don't have to worry about rats either. That's another thing. We do have woodchucks. They generally tunnel underneath the wood piles, and the main problem they cause is if they tunnel underneath the wood pile, they can tunnel it out where it's hollow, especially if you've got like stacked cords, and it'll get an open space on the bottom, and then the pile can tip over on you. And it's not that the woodchucks are chucking wood. They're tunnel underneath it, and it creates a void, and what happens then is there's a gap, and the wood can tip over because if it's on pallets or just stringers, it can tip over on you. So that can be an issue. Rabbits, once in a while, you'll get rabbits underneath the log pile. They don't really do anything. They just want a place to hide for the most part. But like I said, we don't have rats here. I mean, sure, in the big cities, I'm sure they got some, but I've never seen a rat in the wild anywhere. I've seen them in big cities. Once in a while, you'll see a dead one on the road if you go down to Milwaukee or something like that. Kind of where the people that are rats, same place. They live down there. I'm just kidding. Calm down. Here we're folding up the legs, and we're going to be moving the processor because our pile got to the point where it was getting too high, and we spread it out as much as we could. So we folded the one leg up, and the other ones we just pin up, and then I just have to lift the leg in the back on the processor, take the leg out there, so then we can lift up the front, and we're just going to move it a little bit. So all we're going to do is pull it and turn it and then back it up. So I just try to guide. So you can see the pile behind the elevator there was about as big as we could get it. And because that elevator is only a 14 footer, so generally you got 7 or 8 feet of height you can get with it. Most elevators, to figure the height of the wood you can get, you basically cut your elevator height in half. So this sits about a foot off the ground, plus it's 14 feet, so you guess you can get 7 or 8 feet out of it. But here you just pull the pins and let the legs fall back down, and then tip that one back down, and then we're back to work. So the Blockbuster is real easy to move around, and that's something that why I really like this size of a processor. You know, something that you can tow with a half ton. You can move it around real easily. I'm not a big fan of the monster processors that some of the full-time firewood producers have, because they generally never move. If you got a processor that is 18,000 pounds plus any other things you've got around it, you're generally not going to move it at all. Maybe a little bit, but it's such a pain in the butt to set back up and level off and get everything working right that you generally don't move it. I know when I had the big processor, we never moved it. It just sat there because it's so big. It's just ridiculously huge. Yeah, they're solidly made, and yeah, I agree. They last a long time, and they're made for processing huge volumes of wood. But for the average guy that has a small firewood business, or even a medium-sized firewood business, you don't need a monster processor. You just don't. And I like the fact we can move this thing around. So I've had this processor now for 5 months, maybe 6 months. And I picked it up down at Blockbuster, and then we had it on the farm processing wood. I took it to, where did I go? I gotta think here for a second. Well, I've had it here before. Behind those trees behind us, we processed all that ash wood. Then I took it to Jeremiah's down in southern Wisconsin. He's got the YouTube channel, Life in the 608. We had it there, and I'll probably be taking it there again possibly, and I'm going to be taking the processor to my buddy Tony's, and we're going to process some wood at his place too. So all kinds of possibilities. So here we're just finishing off some of the wet logs, and then we're going to move the processor in just a little bit here. But you can see we just drop them in, and they come down the chute, and I cut away, and my brother just kind of keeps the log deck as full as possible. So if he gets it full, then he can go do other things. Here you can see the piling up, and my brother will go in there once in a while with the tractor, pull it down, and then a little later you're going to see him come in, and you'll see the pile go down, and that's because he's got a log in the grapple, and he's just shoving it back and forth to widen out the pile. Right there he did it. And then sometimes if he's gone and it starts to pile up, and he's either loading logs or he's in the woods doing some work in the woods, and it piles up, I'll crawl up there and shove it away, because you do not want to suck a chunk of wood down into the elevator. I just clear it out, because that'll jam it up for you. So you got to try to watch that and keep it clear. Here I'm just loading up the truck. Now this is all the wood that I threw off to the side, that if we had a real dry log that was 100% dry, I would pull those chunks out and throw them off into a pile. And we accumulated enough wood that basically I was able to fill the truck. So you can see I slid the first pieces in and I throw them in and just kind of arrange it so we get them all down and nice and tight. Because I don't want anything blowing out on the highways we're going, so I try to stuff the pieces in and just kind of finish the load off so that it's nice and even, and put the heavier chunks to the top. And then now we're processing some more wood. And again, just bring it in and you can see them drop in there. You can see that's real solid wood except for that little layer on the outside where that the phloem is, the nutrient layer of the wood that's under the bark starts to kind of degrade there. But 99% of the wood is solid as can be. Just that little outside area, you can see that little white edge right there. Kind of a real nice fire starter is what it is. But that's what we have a lot of, is that dead standing oak like this. And once the bark falls off, that inner layer will rot a little bit. You can see that little white cream colored layer on the outside. But this is some bigger stuff here, just cutting a cookie off, and then I toss those to the side, and my brother takes all those home. Usually ends up with a truckload almost every day of cookies. So close to a face cord of wood he's getting just from the cookies on the ends there, and he throws them right in his wood boiler because most of it's pretty dry. Here I'm just trying to turn one around because it's kind of a big one that fell in crooked there. You gotta just spin it around. That does happen occasionally. That's why you want to be able to get at your splitting chamber. And then here I think we're just going to speed things up. You can see the pile will grow pretty fast. And to see the pile of cookies behind me there, I just keep throwing them onto the ground, and then he comes, picks them up with the tractor bucket and throws them in his truck. So that's why they keep disappearing. He keeps getting them out of there. Again, here we're just processing, and the wood as it's coming in the trough, I try to kind of have it so that the big ones we try to do kind of all at the same time, and then I'll do resplits on those. I didn't show a lot of that, but I will reach around to the left of the screen where you're seeing here, and if there's chunks that are bigger than what I want, I'll throw them back in, usually 2 or 3 at a time, and I'll run the ram again and split them down either in halves or even thirds or quarters from what they are, because sometimes you get a big chunk that will get away on you, and I try to get most of them out of here. I think I'm going to cut a cookie. I'm just trying to ease it forward slowly and try to keep the clamp down so it's not letting the piece fall in. But that's a nice size chunk of wood there. That size I really like for running. And people ask me how come I don't use that last cut tray, because that's faster to do that. The tray coming in and out, it's nice on a real big one so that you don't have to fight it. You can get it to drop in decently, but any of the small ones, just let it fall. If it drops in crooked, spin it around. A lot of the stuff that's this size though is real fast to run, because you get a 8-way split on that, sometimes just 6 pieces even, and you get a really nice size splits for what my customers want. And anything that you see like this that's got bark on it, that's a good indicator that I know it's going to be real wet on the inside. The more bark that's on the tree, the wetter it's going to be. The less bark, generally, the drier it is. And we want the stuff that's going to my customers to be as dry as possible. So the pile that we're making from all this wet stuff is going to sit there for months. Might be there for 2, 3, 4, 5 months, just however long it takes. And again, just cut the cookie off before you get to the end, and then your last piece is 16 inches. And I line it up in the back. I've got a piece of tape there so I can kind of see exactly where it's got to be. And if it's within an inch, we're good. This next one coming here looks like it's a pretty dry one, actually. I might be pulling some of these out and throwing them off to the pile behind me. A lot of times I can tell right away when I'm cutting. You can see the inner part of it there. If you look up at the top of the screen, see the center of it, how dark that is? That means it's still wet on the inside. But the outside, probably 2-3 inches there, is really dry. See if you can see another one when I cut it here. If you can see the butt up there, yeah, you can see the outside layer a couple inches all the way around is dry, and then the inner part is wet. And a wet, live green tree will be 40-some%, 45%, somewhere in there. But this barkless oak, the very center of it, even the stuff that's wet, is maybe 30%. So a good portion of it is already dry, which is really nice. And then once you cut it and split it, and it's in a pile, literally in a matter of a couple months, it's ready to burn. It dries real fast because so much drying has already happened. And once you break it open, it's a world of difference. Here's one you can see that's got a lot of rot on that outside edge. And when it drops down, you should be able to see it up there. You can see it's got a lot of powder. And again, that's not a big deal. I've never had anybody complain about it because around where we are, there's so much dead red oak and black oak that it's just a common thing for people to have a lot of wood that looks like that. There may be a few wood snobs that will look at it and say, oh, it's partially rotten. Well, yeah, maybe 5% of it. The rest of it is perfectly fine. There I'm doing a resplit. Just kind of toss it back and you can see it splitting down. I didn't show a lot of the resplits, but that's about the size stuff I will resplit right there. And again, I try to knock it down so you get another 2-3 pieces out of it. And stuff that's this big here, I might resplit 2 or 3 pieces from every log. But again, I didn't show them all. Sometimes I'll run 2 logs, split them, and then pull out the splits before they go up the elevator, and then resplit them. That's probably what I'm doing, is grabbing some splits there. And usually it's the top that I let go a little bigger. Like right here, you're going to see one going. See how big those are, and then I'll split those down smaller. And that's what I do a lot on the bigger ones. Usually get a top couple pieces there. But you can see the wood just flowing out. That's what you want to see. I wish it was that fast in real life. It looks like it's moving right along. There you can see the pile going up pretty quick. And you can see by looking at the wood, you can see the wetness in there. See the darkness? If you see the inner part of that, some of those chunks. And the ones that are real light are mostly dry. So I would say a good 50% of the wood that's in the pile is pretty much ready to burn as it is. Just the top views, you can see the logs being fed in. I'm doing resplits. You can see whenever I'm on the left-hand side there, I'm actually throwing logs back in for resplits. And then you get smaller ones, it goes way faster because there's no resplits. But the big ones, I'm always in there throwing them back in and splitting them down to a size that my customer wants, which is a hand-sized piece. I always tell people it's about the size of your forearm, maybe your upper arm, something that you can grab with one hand, no problem.
Make your money here, and they'll pay for you the rest of the way. Yep. That's all work.
It does. Just store.
You lie to each other.
I just sit on the tractor.
I slept good last night.
Me and Sandy got our bed in a big bed in front of us. That's the dog right there.
You got a dog bed, huh?
He's a good guy.
You didn't want another one, Chris, right?
Take a leak, he goes, works pretty good.
Where'd that stick go? Or pull it out.
Oh, I don't know that shore on the other side of the road.
Yeah.
There's enough about 20 in down into the pull set. I mean, that mound of dirt right over past that.
Yeah.
Give up just one little spot to, if they come down or they can't get the boat out. Yep. If they buy, when they do whoever they can to get some bait. You got this here. Mm-hmm. You got the boating decks on the dock. They're sick of waiting in line to get the fish.
Yep.
We still get a couple $1,000 every corner. Depends how soon you do it. Just give me a dime on every dollar you make. You get 90 cents, I'll take 10 cents.
We don't want to sell it. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So after lunch, we moved the processor, so we folded up the legs, pulled the leg that's hanging down. You can see it dangling there on the elevator. And we're just gonna move it over. You can see the sawdust there that was in that bin. We're gonna back it up to a new spot, kind of just keep moving, and then this way we're gonna process all of the dry wood into the trailer. Well, not all of it, some of it. And we'll be able to access it and get the dry wood done the next time we come back too. So I'll be able to do a load for the truck and a load for the trailer and then haul it back. And then once we get all that done, then we're gonna hit the wet wood, which is the stuff that's in the pile to the back. So we're just putting the trailer in place and we're gonna fire up the machine. And it only takes a short amount of time. I think we filled the trailer and I don't think it even took a half an hour, if that, 20 minutes. It went fast because the wood is a little smaller, and the fact that it's smaller, I didn't have to do any resplits, and the fact that it's dry, I didn't have to do any resplits. So it goes really quick. If you're not doing resplits, obviously, that can add a lot of time to it. And the fact that we had the 8-way wedge in, and these were all 8 to 10 inch logs for the most part. So one pass through and you get some really good size splits. You can see by the size of those. That's the size logs I wish I could run all the time. For my type of customers, you get 8-way split on a log that size, and it's just beautiful hand-sized pieces that anybody can pick up. And they're nice and dry, real nice size, easy to cut, very fast to process. Volume-wise, though, if you're doing like boiler wood, you'd want the big logs, because again, there you could do the 4, the 8-way wedge, or even a 6-way wedge. One passing, you have a nice big chunks, but I'm producing wood for people for fireplaces and fire pits, backyard patio type things, smokeless stoves, and they want it so that the wood actually has flame, and any child in the house or the lady in the house can pick it up with one hand, no problem, and burn it very easily. That's my customers for the most part. There's a lot of guys that watch the channel and make comments that are heating with firewood for their house, and they've either got boilers or big wood stoves, and they call, a lot of times they call my wood toothpicks. I hear that a lot. And a lot of the other people that I know that sell firewood produce small stuff. And the reason is, it's what people want and will pay more money for. And the people that are heating with wood, for the most part, I'm not saying anything bad about them. I'm just saying they're trying to be frugal. They want the best wood possible at the cheapest price, and they want big chunks, so they get a long burn. But the people I sell to are burning, 90% of them are burning wood for fun, for an auxiliary heat, to sit by the fireplace, to relax, to burn some marshmallows, that kind of thing. So the wood that we're producing is for the people that are willing to pay more. They're not really looking to get a super good deal. They just want really good wood that's going to burn right now, and they want really good service. And if they run out, they want to be able to call and have me come either that day or the next day if they can. They're looking for a high quality product with good service. No different than like the wood you get at a convenience store in bundles. They want it to burn tonight, not in next year's season of burning. They want it now. And they're willing to pay more for it. Just like when they go in to buy a bottle of soda at a convenience store, a little 20-ounce bottle, they're going to pay like $3. But if you go to a grocery store, you can get 2 2-liter bottles for like $5. So it doesn't make any sense, but they do it because it's convenient and because it's fast and easy. That is my customer, and that's what they're buying it for fun, for the most part. And this wood that's got the marks on, you can see the lines on the end. I marked all those because I could see there was real heavy cracks on the ends, and then vertical cracks running from the bottom to the top of the log. And you can see that there's the decay on the outside. That's the outer layer of the tree, the inner bark area. And the phloem, or phloem, I think it's how it's pronounced. It's basically where the nutrients of the tree goes up for feeding the tree. But then when the tree dies off and the bark falls off, that little outer area will rot to kind of. It's not really like the inner heartwood or the sapwood. It's not as solid of wood, and what happens is it does rot faster, because these trees have been standing dead for years, as in 4, 5, 6 years, and so the bark will rot off, and then that inner layer will turn to kind of like a spongy, powdery, punky kind of stuff. But the vast majority, 95% of the wood is real solid. Every once in a while you'll get one that'll be a little bit more rotten, but for the most part it's really good stuff. And burns great. What I like about it is that a big part of the drying process has already happened. Even though they're standing dead, oh, I hate when that happens. Sometimes you get a log that 2 of them will fall in, so you got to crawl up. And it's easier to always lift out the smaller logs. That's why I'm taking the back one up and over the top instead of the front one. It's easier just to roll it up and over. I found that out. So that happens occasionally. And if you get 2 real big ones, sometimes you got to use the tractor to pick it out. Or we get up there with the cant hook and we'll roll it out of there. That's about all you can do. But my brother's kind of evening the load out, and I just keep processing. And dropping logs in, and we're trying to get as much in as we can because we want to obviously make it worth the trip. And I don't stack it in the trailer, we just let it go loose because I don't want to have to stack it. That's just, it's a waste of time. A lot of you know I believe that. So just processing away here, and we're trying to get as much of it done as possible so we can get going. So this is the very last log that we processed that day. We did a bunch of wood that was wet on the inside that needed to dry, and then the last bit you saw going into the trailer was all logs that we had separated that were dry. You can see by looking that 99% of it is bone dry, ready to burn. So there's the piles. We did, I think, 2 piles, something like that, probably about 6 full cords. You can see the piles of sawdust. We try to block the sawdust from going into the wood, and my brother wants to use some of it for around his apple trees, and we tried to not have all the sawdust go into the log pile so that it would be able to breathe better and not hold moisture. That's kind of the main reason that I want to do it. We try to get the cones, you know, so that they're pretty big. We spread them out a little bit as you're going. Here you can see the cage to the left there we put for the sawdust. There's the load on the trailer. I had to even that all out and then put the cargo netting strap cover on top so that I don't have anything blowing out going down the road. But we moved everything over there, and we're going to do all of the dry wood, which is that stuff right you see right there. We got the pile that was here, that's done. And that pile that you see right in the middle now, that is the stuff that's marked, that's dry. You can see by the marks on the end, all the wood that we found that was really dry. And there's some more in this pile. So we've got 2 loads done, which is nice. And I hauled back quite a bit of it to my place. You'll see some of that coming up a little bit later. And then that's the stuff that's going to be sitting to dry. And a lot of people have asked, well, how come it's just on the ground? Well, that's a very sandy area. It's very dry there. And the wood is mostly dry already, like half of it, so it'll be just fine. So here I'm just hooking up the trailer. We got a couple supervisors there. And then when I get back to my place, I backed up to where I've got the ash dumped. And I've got about 3 loads of ash dumped, and then this is the red oak that I'm dumping next to it. So I'll show you that, how I got it separated here. So it's in an area in the back, my property that's out of sight so no one can see it. So it's behind a berm that I have and a bunch of trees, so it's out of the way. So I'll be selling this stuff fairly fast. So as I bring wood back, I'll sell it, and then just keep bringing more wood back as I make trips. So I dumped the trailer, and I'm bringing the truck in because I had that loaded, so I'm unloading it here. And it was getting dark, so I had to kind of boost up the contrast. Here you can see the oak to the right, and then the ash is right about where you see that stump there going to the left. So right there kind of is where the dividing line is from there over. So that's 1 load right there. That's 5 face cords or full cord and 2/3. And then here's 3 loads that I had from my trailer and truck that I hauled back already. And again, that's way in the back. And it's just dumped on top of grass there. And this stuff is all dry and ready to burn, so it doesn't need to dry anymore. It's ready to go.